I want to ask you about the current state of the race. When I saw you just a few days ago at a Google conference in Montecito, you were getting impatient with the Harris Walls campaign and saying, come on, let's get going, kids. We don't have a lot of time. They have been much more public facing of late. Kamala Harris has done a lot more interviews this week, as I know you've seen, James. Um, are you feeling better about the way the campaign is being run, or are you still frustrated?
Well, I don't know. I'm always, I tend to have a bias toward aggression. Uh, big surprise there. Uh, I'm nervous. I mean, I think if you think about it, they have now 25 days to go till the election. We're going to lose, you know this, we're going to lose the next 2 days to the storm. Not going to be a lot of breakthrough. So you have a lot of work to do in a very short period of time. And I'm not a fan of the multiple interview strategy because when you do interviews, the the interviewer gets to ask you the question and
Mhm.
quit answering questions and start asking questions. How could J.D. Vance actually say that Trump saved Obamacare when he tried to destroy it 100 times, and then have President Obama go out and say, "Look, this is what they were doing and trying to do to our signature accomplishment." Have President Clinton explain to people in these swing states why tariffs are just a terrible idea. You may think they sound good on the surface, but they have a god awful history of causing economic hardship. She certainly can, I think, can be much more active on the courts. A big story about how they jammed Kavanaugh through. She can, I think she needs to take advantage of these things. And from what I'm seeing, I think they're starting to do that. I see they have President Obama going out on the trail. I see they have President Clinton, which they have an advantage because President Bush is not going out for Donald Trump. I promise you that. Okay, he's not going to do any events for him. And so she has a stronger bench or something more better surrogates. But I do think that they need to get much more aggressive in dealing with him. And he's not going to do any debates. He's not even going to do Fox. And uh, and I think the reason he doesn't want to be debate because he knows he'll be held accountable for some of the things that he's saying or putting out.
And now
But
CNN has offered him a town hall.
I mean, people will give him anything, but he's not. He's not going to do that. And they put out this in the most dangerous thing that a human being can utter today is, "Oh, come on, James, no one's going to believe that crap." Oh yeah, don't believe anything. You actually have a member of Congress of a major American political party saying the Democrats are generating hurricanes and directing them toward Republican areas. Like, lady, I don't know how to tell you, I've been a Democrat all my life. We can't organize a two-car parade. How can we start a hurricane?
Well, that's one of the questions I interviewed you and John Boehner just a few days ago. And one of the questions I had is, how do you deal with so much dis and mis and malinformation, particularly around natural disasters? But it's pretty consistent about a whole host of issues. But the Hurricane Helene one was really at a whole new level. I mean, how do you fight that kind of false information, these conspiracy theories that honestly a lot of people are believing?
What I still think they should do is I think they should get my former mayor, Mitchell Andrew, who I think is the best communicator in the Democratic Party, who's actually dealt with multiple hurricanes, and every morning have him do a press briefing and say, Fox News has my number. Anytime they want me to go on the air and they want to question me about anything that they promoting, know that I'm ready. Because they let this stuff go by. And speaking of Speaker Boehner, he's a very, I really enjoyed my time with him, and you could see he just is like shaking his head. He can't believe what's kind of happening to the Republican Party. He was pretty clear that he wasn't very happy with the direction. He's still
He
obviously
said,
like,
I'm a Republican, but I'm not crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he was very clear, and I like to let people speak for themselves and don't speak for him. But he was very charming. He was very open, and I thought he was, pretty forthright. I enjoyed the time the three of us had on stage.
So in terms of dealing with the false information, you would just have them refuting it. And have you called Mitch Landrieu and made that suggestion?
Well, I made it on TV, and I've actually made the suggestion to other people. I just think it's so obvious, and let communicators deal with this. In FEMA, the people that run it, I'm told, are very capable. I think they're doing. I've lived with these things all my life. And when you're 7 feet underwater, no one looks good. Okay, I mean Abraham Lincoln wouldn't look good, but they got some really dedicated people there. It's very professionalized, and they start these insane rumors. And how do as Mark Twain famously said, a liar get around the world 2 times before the truth can put its shoes on. And I think that was true in Mark Twain's time, and I think it's even more. And they didn't even have an internet. They didn't have radio. They didn't have
I
any.
was going to say a
Okay?
lie can
And
make its way
he knew
a
how fast the
dozen
lie could
times,
travel.
a dozen times around the world at this point.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a couple more questions about the election because I know you got to go soon, James. But I want to ask you about the issue or the challenges Democrats are having. As you mentioned when we talked earlier, they're having a man problem, particularly with young men of color. I
Right.
want to read a quote from a piece in Politico that talked today about how Harris is performing with Black men in Michigan. Quote, 3 dozen Black Detroiters, including strategists, activists, clergy, elected officials, and likely voters, the vast majority of the men, told Politico about their concerns with the campaign's outreach to Black voters. Some said their appeals come off as condescending. Others added that party officials and surrogates often question their intelligence if they inquire about how their lives will change under a Harris administration. Others lament the campaign hasn't reached out enough to well known grassroots organizations who hear firsthand about the apathy from Black voters in marginalized neighborhoods like Belmont and Delray. So, what do you think about the way the Harris campaign is trying to reach these people? Is there something more they can do or something more effective they can do, James?
Well, but all life in politics, people say you don't do enough in the community. You don't have enough visibility. If it was a Black community, or if it's the more activist, progressive community. So that some of that is natural. Some of it is real. I do think, and I've been pretty clear about it, that to a lot of young males and Black males, that we can come across as a kind of preachy. Don't watch. We don't watch football. Don't eat hamburgers. Don't drink beer. And like, gee, leave me alone. Change tires all day, 10 hours a day. I want to go home and drink a beer and watch a game and eat a hamburger. But who can blame? And so I think there's some kind of pushback to that. I think they like at some level they feel like they're not heard in society, and Trump kind of sounds different. He's got this kind of the idiot, but you can see that where he has some attraction to people who just hate the whole system. Uh, but I mean, there's work to be done. I suspect that we'll do better than most people think at the end of the day. But I think,
Could they be utilizing Tim Walz more effectively, James, you think?
you know, maybe, but it's they can be using they have a whole bunch of circuits headlined by President Obama and President Clinton, and thank God that they going out in there. And I think they could use. I mean, I think Waltz was picked because he was so male. I mean, he was a football coach. He was a
Right, a different archetype than Donald
band
Trump.
sergeant major. He was a hunter, and I think that is part of what the Democrats need. I mean, I always tell 48% of the people that vote are males. That's a lot. 48% is, and you you always hear, oh, it's suburban moms, it's women of color, it's soccer moms, it's the women's vote is going to be the most critical. Well, sometimes males hear that and they say, well, what am I doing here? And that became part of progressive culture. I think it became too fashionable in some high-end Democratic consulting circles that we could win on just a women's vote, of which we can't. And I think that it's also hurt us with, I hate the term, but I'll use it anyway, with males who are not white. Oh, let's leave it at that. Okay, communities of color, which is a term I don't like that term because it is an assumption by white people that everybody that is not white is the same, and that's decidedly not true. But I can't fight every dictionary and every you know progressive lingo that comes out. But we are not doing as well as we can with the Hispanic or Latino males, or we're not with black males. There's room for improvement here. There really is.
What should she do?
Well, I think she's doing pretty good. She doesn't use any of that coded language. She never talks about her gender. She never talks about her race or ethnic background. She never uses that kind of language, and that's a good start. All right, that's a real good start. And I think what happened is a lot of well-meaning people thought you could change human nature by changing dictionaries. And it was an idea that didn't catch on. Let's just leave it at that. They were well-meaning, but the public never embraced it. It's because they're going to talk, they didn't want to use, coded academic language, and it kind of went nowhere. And I'll give Harris credit that she got wrapped up into that foolishness a little bit when she ran for president, but uh, she doesn't she doesn't engage in that, and I think it'll help us some in the end.
I know you got to go, but and tell Justin, I promise this is my last question because
All
you've
right.
got a
Okay.
movie
All right.
premiere. But James, I was listening to a podcast this morning and I knew this intellectually, but it really struck me when I heard it. And that was that all Donald Trump needs to do is win Georgia and Pennsylvania. And I thought, wow, that's all he needs to do. And that doesn't seem that unlikely. Certainly not Georgia, and Pennsylvania is neck and neck. So I guess it all does come down to Pennsylvania, huh?
If you lose Georgia and Pennsylvania, you carry Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada. I'd have to do the math in the second congressional district. You can't lose Pennsylvania. Okay, it's pretty. Every
You can or you can't.
can't. We have to win Pennsylvania. It becomes enormously difficult at the point that you don't. Uh, but the good news is, we're, if anything, maybe a touch ahead, not where we need to be. But I don't. I'll say this, and I really mean this. Just doesn't feel like an election that Harris is going to lose. I don't base that. I base that on the fact that the economic numbers are getting better. Okay, I can't tell you that they're great. And Trump is flawed. 48% of the people that start out can't stand him. That's not a good number to start with people that are against you. And I think she can fill out more. Everybody knows who she is, but not everybody knows what she is. And I hope that they can tell a good story about what she is and what she wants to do. And she's got a big fundraising advantage. And how much it matters, I don't know, but it matters something. It shows that people, the volunteers. I talked to a friend of mine that kind of runs everything in North Carolina. I had a guy come up to me who was like a PhD in, I don't know, molecular physics, and he wanted to go to North Carolina and volunteer. He said, "I don't want any money, James. Just get me." And so it took him like 6 days to give him an assignment to have so many people coming in and volunteered. And I hear these stories but it is a sign of something. Okay, I don't know if it's a determinative sign, but all of the little, you know, I place more stock in this than you would think. I get ad hoc reports on yard signs that Trump, and I see it myself. And I'm in the Shenandoah Valley, you know exactly where I live. Between Highway 11 in my place in 2020, I'd see 7 Trump signs. Today, I don't see any. Now, do I think that Harris is going to carry Shenandoah County? No, I don't think any such thing. But I do think there's some indication that there's some reluctance to overly identify with him. And I again, I don't know what it means, but I do think it's one of these little indicators that give me some sense of optimism. But it's nothing that Nate Silver is going to look at and be impressed by.
Right. It's just a feeling you have
It's
because
just,
Bob Woodward's book comes out, right?
God, can you
Trump,
believe
call,
it? I mean, it's
Trump,
like,
call, Trump calls Putin 7 times, sends him COVID test. In most elections, that would be like, holy cow. And these events have happened time and time again. But I guess we started using the term Teflon presidency for Ronald Reagan. But I've never seen anybody able to withstand all these bad events and have such good luck.
well, let's see when they count the votes. Okay, these things generally break a little bit one way or the other, and maybe it's not as successful as we fear. I don't know that. I don't have any inside information that any normally in, informed person would have. I see a lot of private polls. They're frankly not a lot different than most of the public polls, but I just have a sense that she might do better than we think. And but I could change that. You could ask me that 5 days ago, and I'm like, what my favorite was John Maynard Keynes. They said, well, you changed your position. He said, yeah, when the facts change, I change my mind. What do you do? And I can just honestly say from where I sit, everything I see, I think I would rather be her than him. But
Well,
that,
now,
that's
now
probably
that I have your cell phone, I'll check in with you in a week or
Absolutely.
so and see how you're
Anything.
feeling.
Thanks,
James,
guys. I'm
thank you
really
so much.
frustrated,
all
but
right.
we
So
Thank
gotta
much.
you.
jump.
I know
All
I'm
you
right.
pulling
have
it.
to
Thank
go.
you, guys. We
The
appreciate
clock.
you.
Thank you.
See
Thank
you.